Yeah. So remember I mentioned that we should have a final project for the model evaluation part. So it turns out that there were more complexities involved. Like even the university had to be asked before you could change the final project. So what we did was we decided to keep the final project as is from the last year because it takes a lot of time before you can change the final project request for the final project. And I have just published the final project now. I'm going to put it up on the screen so everyone can see. But we will still do the model evaluation part, but now we will do it as an assignment. And it will be a much smaller aspect rather than the final project part. So I'm going to show you the final project. We're just going to go through that. I don't know if you have seen this before, but take a look. And on Zoom, I'm going to share. Let's see. Yeah. So hope everyone can see on Zoom as well. Can everyone on Zoom see my final project? No. Okay. Wait. How about now? Okay, then. All right. Let me see. Okay, so let's go through the final project. One of the reasons we did not want to do the final project is because of the prompt engineering tools, the AI tools we have right now, which can actually help with those. But it turns out we are stuck to this final project because of certain rules and regulations inside the university. So we'll have to do this. So you'll have to write, you'll have to create a Word file, a report file on one of the three parts. You have to do an implementation use case, or you will have to do a risk assessment, or you will have to do an in-depth explanation on any topic of AI you choose. Now, the thing is, you're allowed to use whatever tool you want to use to complete this project, but everything you do will be evaluated and checked, just like you would create a report and you would search the internet and you would fill in the report with the information you have received. So treat ChatGPT also the same kind of tool. So use it if you were to create the final project, but don't copy paste. And the reason I'm saying this is because we use an internal tool which can detect if you copy paste this directly from ChatGPT. So use ChatGPT if you want to, but change the text and rephrase the wording so you can help. It can help you in your in writing the report. It's like reading any other website and then you understand what they're talking about and then you use that information, like any other research project you will be working with. But this project is a fairly easy one. And this should be done in groups of people. So yeah. Any questions on the final project? It's a month from now. Yeah. Anyone on Zoom who wants to know or? Yeah.
Is this a part of the exam or just normal exam?
So this final project will be 30, it will have like a 30% weightage for the final marks. If you have like a, so 70% will be the final exam and 30% will come from the final project. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Said that we're going to have 3 mandatory assignments.
Yes.
Is this the third one then? Or?
This is the final project. The third mandatory is gonna come in like a few days.
Okay.
But that's a very easy one. That would be just prompt engineering. Today we'll discuss what prompt engineering is, and we'll show you how to work with prompt engineering. I wanted to give you prompt engineering as a final project, but I just couldn't do that. So yeah, please.
So is this the last
class
lecture we're going to have?
Yes, today is the last lecture.
Right? So then I was wondering, with the exam, the written exam, is from the, is there only the information from the presentations you've had that we're going to have on the exam? So that's where we're going to find everything.
So presentations, slides are your main source of information. Then one of the books, the one I uploaded was by Andrew Yang. It was regarding practical, I think it was MLOps or something like that. So go through the slides. Slides is everything. And that book which I uploaded, that's a very small book. Sorry, yes, machine learning yearning. It's not MLOps, machine learning yearning. And if you want to take a look at a sample exam, I uploaded a sample exam. So it's not like a historical one. It will give you an idea what kind of questions will come. You will only get MCQs, multiple choice questions. So we will not give you, we will not ask you to explain things. It's, yeah. You do that in other classes? That's very weird. No, we will not have that. Okay. Please send an email or ask questions or for the TAs if you have any questions, and we'll try to fix them. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and come back to the presentation. All right, recording has started, and let's see. Today will be the last class. We don't even need to use the full class time. I think we'll be done in the first. Yeah, I think we'll be done in half an hour or so. Prompt engineering is a pretty easy concept. And then we'll be done. So everything until today will be part of the exam. So you have to learn that part. How many of you use ChatGPT? Good. Okay. For those of you who do not, I encourage you to try it out. It's very useful. It changes, it helps you out actually as a very good assistant, and it makes your life easier in a lot of things. So you already have an idea on what's a prompt, right? When you talk to the ChatGPT, that's everything you say is actually a prompt. But I wouldn't say it's a field, but the whole question and the whole point of writing a question to ChatGPT is called prompting. And what the AI professionals like to say is that prompt engineering is actually that on how you engineer a specific question to ChatGPT. Sorry, I'm saying ChatGPT is not ChatGPT, but any kind of AI model you're going to be interacting with. If you're sending it a question, how can you structure the question would be a prompt engineering part. So what is a prompt engineering? It's input or instruction you give to an AI model, or in simple terms, it's also the request by the user to perform a task. So right now we're talking about large language models. We're talking about ChatGPT, which is a large language model. It's not an image-based model. And well, now it uses DALI. But the focus is not on the large language model part, the focus on the AI modeling part. So it can be any kind of AI model. And if you give it some sort of instruction, it will become it's actually a prompt. Now, the focus is the design part. And why is the design of a prompt important? And the reason it's important is that when humans talk with each other, we have a way to communicate with each other. First of all, we agree on a common understanding of language. We will only speak the language which both people can understand. Hopefully, they can understand. Right now, we are communicating using English, but we could also use some other language like Norwegian language to communicate, because that's the only two languages which, at least in this class, we can communicate in. So first we define the parameters, which language should we communicate in. The second thing we define is how we do the communication. Like there are multiple ways I can communicate with you. I can communicate with you by talking like a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or 15-year-old, or and so forth and so forth. Or I can talk to you like a person who was born in 1800s, or a person who, yeah. So there are multiple ways I can communicate, but then I also need to keep in mind how you as a person would interpret what I'm saying. So speech is very important because you want the other person to understand what you are trying to say. And that defines the standard of an effective communication and how you want your message to be displayed to the other person. That's the same concept we use with the AI models. If you cannot explain to an AI model what you want the model to do, the model will not be able to fully help you out. And that's where the design part of a prompt engineering comes in, that you need to design your prompt or your question in a very good way so you can get the maximum result out of the AI model. So the question can be as simple as that, tell me a joke. That's a very simple question. Or it can be a bit more specific. So you can ask it like, explain to me the theory of relativity. Or you can have, you can give it certain instructions and ask it to do a specific thing, like write a Python code which does this, 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 or that. Again, like a regular conversation you would be having with your friends, or you with your teacher, or with your coworkers, and you're telling them exactly what to do. You know, the biggest problems we have while we work in organizations is not that technology is hard to work with, or we have a goal, we can't achieve the goal because it was impossible. The biggest problem we have is people. And it's not like people have different problems, it's like the communication problem. And most of the organizations fail because they don't focus on the communication part good enough. Because sometimes you have people who do not like to communicate that much, and people who communicate so much more that it overwhelms the other people. And communication is the biggest problem. And if you as a boss or if you as a coworker and are not able to explain what you want the other person to do, that will have a negative impact on the working of an organization as well. And consider the AI model as your assistant. It is an assistant designed specifically for you. And if you can't communicate with it and cannot understand how it will work for you, that will also fail. Right. So there are multiple ways you can design a prompt. If you have been using the ChatGPT like tools for a while, you probably know most of these things, but I'm gonna just go over with them because there are some of you who haven't used it yet. So there's a pattern while designing a prompt. There are different patterns you can use. One of the pattern is a persona pattern, and a persona pattern, as the name suggests, is like instructing the chat bot or the AI model that now you have to start behaving like a specific person, not a person, but a persona. It's a professional, a character, or an object, and you have to, and the model has to behave in that specific specific persona and then give answers. Yeah. Yeah, so personas can be anything. It can be an actual person or it can be an object. You can even tell the AI model to act like a PC or a Mac. You can tell the AI model to act like an actual human being, Edward Munch, um, or Einstein, for example, or you can tell them to be hypothetical and act as a stock market trader or a teacher, and then or act like a 5-year-old or act like a 30-year-old. And when you give those specific personas to the AI model, the AI model has been trained on huge amounts of data, billions of parameters. And when you give those billions of parameters to the model and train it, the model then understands how a 5-year-old would behave, how a 30-year-old would behave, how Edward Munch would be behaving, how Einstein would be behaving, or how a PC works or how a Mac works. And then it uses all the knowledge it has for those specific personas, and it starts to talk with you in that specific setting. Then every information the model will give you back would be based on that specific persona. And that's useful because then you can define the context, and then you have the problems, and then you can ask like, all right, I have this problem. How do you fix this problem from that context only? Yeah. So, I mean, one of the examples I did was to, you probably have seen this example before. So what we tried was that we asked the model to be skeptic about, yeah, just a skeptic person, not an overly enthusiastic person, a skeptic person. And then when the model was skeptic, I then asked, okay, so do you think AI would take over the world? And then you're like, all right, no, we don't think it will take over the world, but but if you change the skeptic part and if you tell it to be on the opposite end, do you think it will give you the same answer? Right? Because now it has changed the persona, and now it's thinking about the Terminator style things, and now it's focused only on those aspects which are bad, and will only give you answer because it thinks like these things will go wrong. So the role of the model is not to give you the precise answer. The role of the model is to predict. So the actual answer might be wrong, and the actual answer might be completely off. And for example, the project I just gave you, if you use ChatGPT to do the project, and you ask all the instructions, it will just predict and try to say what it thinks should be said in that specific context. But when you combine everything together, you might see it doesn't really make sense because the model is just predicting and trying to give value. So sometimes when you ask the model to answer 2 plus 2, it can also give answers as 5 because somewhere on the data training part, it was a joke like 2 plus 2 equals to 5. And then people explained why it was 2 plus 2 equals to 5. But the model picked it up and the model was trained like 2 plus 2 equals to 4, but 2 plus 2 equals to 5 as well. So the model is not actually good at doing mathematics, but the model is good at predicting because it has been trained on that kind of data. Yeah. You can also, as I said, like you can force the model to, instead of acting like a person, you can force it to act like an object. An object would be like asking the model to be like a Linux computer. And now when the model is actually acting like a Linux computer, you can ask it to do like certain commands you would do to a Linux shell, and it will actually execute those commands. The result might not be an actual result. It's just a simulation. It's just like a prediction, but it's acting in that specific way. So have you tried those online terminals where you can put in your JavaScript code and you can see the output for that one? I mean, you can do that in an AI model as well. you can run, you can see how the output for a specific command would be. Yeah. Some people have also tried it to act like a hacker, and they very early people tried to check it out if it could act like a hacker, and it kind of did. But then OpenAI found out and they shut it down. But I do know that there is on the dark web. Anyone tried dark web? Okay, it's a very interesting place. It's not illegal to try it out. You should try it out. You should know what dark web is, and you should take a look at what kind of information you can find over there. On the dark web, there are no laws on the dark web, so you have 2 or 3 chatbots which are designed specifically to hack and to give you information about unethical things to do. And it's a very scary thing because you can it's a paid service, so you can actually it's you can pay like, I don't know, $20 or $50, something like that, and then it can tell you everything about how to hack, how to stalk, and this and that. So every illegal thing which is actually illegal is you can find over there. So what someone did was they picked up an open source model and they trained on any illegal thing you can find, and then they started selling for it. And turns out there's a huge market for it because, yeah, there is. So one thing which these models, the way they work is that you have open source companies, you have companies like OpenAI and others who are making sure that these models should not do any harm. So they constrain it that if you ask the model to give you a guideline of how to build an atomic bomb or a chemical bomb, it will not do that. But it's the model, right? It knows how to build the bomb. It's just that they have forced you. These companies have forced the model not to say anything. But if you build the model on your own and you ask the model, if you don't put any parameters around it, if you don't control it, and you ask the model, can you tell me how to build a bomb? It will tell you how to build a bomb because it has learned it from all the billions of parameters. And that's one of the reasons why skeptics on the AI side are very skeptic about development in AI, because okay, now you have companies who are controlling it, who have some guidelines around it. But look at the dark web, look at the models which are evolving and flourishing over there. It's suddenly much more easier for terrorists to look at those models and build these kind of yeah things. Previously, they were going to YouTube videos, which were not even, yeah, they were shut down. But now you have a model, a much more capable one. So the AI skeptics are skeptic for the good reason. And I think we all should be concerned about it. But then we should also look at the power of the technology, how much it can help us out and where it can actually take us. Yeah, so you can also ask, again, you can ask it to be like a specific person who the model has been trained on, and you have examples of Albert Einstein all over the internet. So the model has learned about Albert Einstein. Most of the training for the models has been done on knowledge on Wikipedia. So if you know anything on Wikipedia, the models, or most of the models, will actually learn it. One of the projects which I'm working with right now is called Monk GPT. So I'm working with Monk Museum to create a Monk style GPT, which will learn all the paintings of Edvard Munch and be able to, if people go in and talk to the agent, it will reply in the style of Munch. And this kind of personas is something we are investigating. How can we enforce the model to work in a persona and then ask it to reply only in the style of Munch? But there are other ethical concerns about it because you should not, you can, but you should not use the model to show some person who has passed away, and because that can be used in a very non-ethical way. So we are dealing with those ethical considerations before we can start working on the model development. Any questions until now? No, straightforward. If you were to create a helpful assistant pattern, like you have a model from scratch and you don't have any good line lines or bad line lines, but you want the model to perform in a good way, then the patterns you can use is an example you could use is that you could in your questions you could tell the assistant like, okay, you're a helpful assistant. You will answer my questions and you will also answer a question. You will not answer which are insulting or hostile tone. There's a feature so whenever you're asking a question, what you do is if you make this text and you append it before all of your questions, and every time you ask a question to the model, it will remember this as a pre-requirement, and then you will ask the question. So it can also be a fact that a few startups which I've spoken to, what they do is that they use ChatGPT as a backend, and then they just do prompt engineering. They just focus on the prompt engineering side, and they tell it, okay, now you have to act like a painter, for example, and then for every question which is asked, they tell it you have to act like a painter, you have to act like a teacher, and then for those specific results coming out, they made applications targeted to those individuals, and they're selling it like this AI model is for all the teachers. So in the backend is using ChatGPT, but I mean, they figured out a way on how to master prompts. And when they figured that out, they were able to sell a product. So prompting is important because if you figure out prompting, you will be able to figure out how to build your next business based on it. Yeah, this was a very interesting point. Like most of the large language models are trained to a specific point, and then they have a cutoff date, and then they have knowledge only to that date. So, so what you can do is for you to be able to communicate with the model. And so let's say if the model was trained by January 1st, 2021, and you want the model to explain or to act on information which came afterwards, like in 2022, you have a problem because the model doesn't really know about that information. But you can provide that information externally to the model. There are many ways to do that. And so let's take a simple example that you want to predict the price of the movement for Tesla stock. And I wanted to predict for November 7th, which was yesterday. And I want to predict the high movement for Tesla stock. You always have an open, high, low, and close for every kind of stock price. And we know that all those models have been trained on public data, and public data always contain information about financial history. So it does have information about that. But when I asked it the question, what will the price move Tesla stock on November 7th, it will give me this information that it doesn't have that data. However, if you change the prompt and you provide that data to the model will now try to do an analysis based on the data we have provided. Now, I provided very small data just to show you as an example, but using that information, now the model was able to do its own calculation and tell like, okay, now I think based on the time series data which you have provided, that the price for Tesla stock high will be this, which is completely wrong. I checked, but I'm just giving you an idea that this is how to be able to give you information, give you a reply based on the information you provide. Yeah.
But if you want to like predict, that you have like a whole array of numbers, indicating stock. How would you go about uploading that to the actual ChatGPT? Because you can't really upload any files, right? So it means actually download and train this model.
I think now with the new version you can, but let's assume you're not using ChatGPT, you're using something else. So the way these models understand data very easily is a comma separated value. I'm assuming most of you have worked with comma separated values. That's like it's an Excel format, and every field is separated by a comma and so on. These models understand it very well because that's the base for most of the things you do inside Python programming language. That's one way you can just copy paste data. But yeah, some models work with files. ChatGPT now works with files, but other models don't work with files. There's also a limitation on how much size of questions you can ask. So if you have a document which has 20 pages, you cannot use GPT 3.5 to parse that document because the amount of characters is pretty too long. But you could use GPT 4 to parse it. But if you have a much bigger document, GPT 4 would also fail. So you need to make sure you need to know the context window. That's the context window which we discussed in the last lecture. And the context window is how big is the question you can ask while prompting the model. Okay. Let me see. Right. We discussed, okay, yeah. A few examples of how you can get effective prompts. So you have two examples. So you can ask like a direct question to the model and be like, okay, make a poem on, write a poem on OpenAI. You will get some sort of results, but it's more effective if you give more information and more contextual information about what kind of poem you wanted to write and what kind of desired output you also want. The more information you have in the context, the better it is for the model to give you a reply. Someone just mentioned on Zoom that the GPT 3.5 token limit went up to 16,000 characters a few days ago. That's a huge thing. And if GPT 3.5 has token limit of 16,000, then GPT 4 has much, much more because that's a much advanced version. Okay. So another way would be to give it examples. You can give it a lot of examples to the things you're trying to solve. So one way would be you could say like extract entities mentioned in the text and whatever the text can be. And then you can say like, okay, extract the following information from it. You would still get some sort of output, but if you want like a good output, you could say like extract the important entities, blah, blah, blah. First extract the company names, then people names and specific topics and general themes. And then this is the format you need and ask it to make the format. But it also could be a thing that you ask this question first and then you see what kind of results it's giving you. And then you ask the second question and you iterate. Now, this is very interesting. A zero shot and a multi model short learning example. A zero shot example is that you ask the model a question, and a zero shot technique is you ask the model a question and the model will give you a reply. That's like asking a question and getting a reply, and then you rely on the answer which comes out. And then there is a few shot techniques. And with the few shot techniques, that you kind of train the model with a few examples of how you think the world should be like. And then you ask a question for the model. Now, this technique is extremely useful while working with data labeling and data annotation on the textual part. And the reason why it's extremely useful is that you have some client's data and the client has asked you to label all the data sets, 1 million data sets, and you know how data set looks like. So what you do is you take the data sets and you divide it into different training sample and the test sample, and then you give it to ChatGPT or any kind of AI model. And you ask the AI model, you first tell the model like, this is how data set looks like. First question, second question, third question. Now I want you to look at data set and tell me how every one of them will behave. This is your way of training the model on your contextual data and asking it to give you an output on how it will look like. We use it a lot in data labeling for text. And this has reduced the cost for us when it comes to using humans and combination with AI, because now we have AI models which work amazingly on text, and we just train it on the client's data, and then the model kind of gives us very good outputs. Okay. Then where am I? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's much better to tell the model to what to do instead of telling it to what not to do, because what not to do kind of puts a lot of restricts the model in many ways. But if you tell the model how it should do this within specific parameters, you kind of expand the possibilities of a model so it can use more knowledge to reply to you. But if you tell the model like you cannot do this, and that, then the model will already shut down most of its knowledge parameters to give you a reply. So it's like looking at the glass is half full or the half empty one debate. Like you have to look at the model in a more pessimistic, optimistic way so you can actually get the right answer. This example, I'm not that sure of it because I tried it, but okay. What I have learned is that when you are using the model to write some code, and you kind of specify one extra line, which specifies, okay, it's a Python code, it's an SQL code, or so on, that helps the model in writing that specific programming language in a more effective way. But I tried both things; they worked well for me. But it's your personal choice how you make it to work. Okay, we're now done with the prompt engineering part, but now I'm going to show you something really cool. I would like all of you to open up your terminals or your command prompts, and I would like you to interact with the Norsk GPT. This is a new GPT which my startup has created. We have not released it yet. So this is a large language model trained on Norwegian language data. And this would be available as a free model, and yeah, everyone can use it. But we are prompting it, we are fine tuning it and making it available. This will be launched on like 15th or 16th of November for the whole Norwegian society. It will be called Norsk GPT, and you can test it now if you want to. So I want you to do like a post request. So this is a model which works in Norwegian language data. So ask any question which you would like to ask, and write like a Norwegian language. We will have an assignment on doing a prompting part to this Norsk GPT. Now everything else we should be as I'll send a Zoom message also, but change the prompt part. So for the prompt, this stays as is, and then change the text which comes over here. Sorry. most of the times when you make a model on your own, this is how you will interact with the model, because you will not build like a chatbot interface around it. So did you get a reply? It's a bit slow.
Message for now.
What is it? Are you on Zoom or something? I can send you the. I can.
Seems to be working.
Okay. Yeah, that's always the problem. When you test the model on your own PC or a computer, this is how you do the testing part. It's always a post. Well, it's not always, but I mean, this is an easier way to test it, unless and until you put like a chatbot interface on it. But did anyone of you get like a wrong reply or something, or a reply which was funny or strange? You would like to share? Yeah.
Question. Sorry, I fell off a bit. Just to the prompts. Supposed to remove that?
No. So only remove. Change the part if you want to.
Oh, no,
So that's the only part you should. Everything else should remain as it. This is like a standard post request to any kind of web service you would do. Anything which was wrong or which was problematic?
Language of formulation is so-so, and a couple of not typos, but weird choice of words.
Right. The grammar isn't really that well. So thank you for that feedback. It's still in development.
And it's very like formal.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. It's when you train it on data from Sprout content, it's supposed to be able to form. You could train it to, you could prompt it to work to act like a specific case, give it a persona, and then talk to it. So yeah, you will get an assignment on, and you will also get a few prompts. This is the command you will use to do that assignment, and those are very simple assignment. It will be made available on a crowdsourcing platform, so you can easily access it and do click and click, and it will be done on the platform. But the command part has to be done on your computer part. I would encourage you to make models of your own, fine tune a model, try to see if this works. That was out of the course, out of the scope for this course. But it's a very good learning on how you can make a model for your own specific data.
Just since we had about prompting, an interesting way to see at least how GPT-4 and Dolly uses prompting, the new Dolly 3, since when Dolly 2 was released, there was like this community with how to effectively prompt. But with Dolly 3, you give ChatGPT a prompt, and then it rewrites your prompt to be the most effective prompt to use with Dolly 3. And it provides you the prompt it used. It generates like 4 prompts, which is which ChatGPT deems as the most effective prompt to give you what you want. So you can like see how it rewrites your prompt to a more effective prompt. So it's a good way to learn how to write effective prompts.
I did not know that. Thank you for sharing. That's very cool.
But you have to have GPT-4.
Yeah.
Or I think maybe Microsoft have with their stuff that you can access it for free through Microsoft.
You can? Okay.
I think.
I didn't know that. Well, thank you for sharing. That was very useful. I have been using DALI, but my images are horrible when they come out.
And it's fun to see because you get like a really visual feedback on how you did, especially when you see Dolly 2 versus Dolly 3.
Yeah.
You can both see how far they come, but also you get like a really visual representation of how good your prompt worked.
Yeah. You're right, and the result comes out immediately. Any other comments, feedbacks, or suggestions?
We can get it to work.
Hmm?
We can't get it to work.
I'll
It's timed
come
out.
to you.
Okay.
I'll come to you then. But I think, huh?
Yeah, you talked about
Yeah.
do you have like a website or like a place for like to start?
One of the topics we did not discuss was fine-tuning the model.
Yeah.
But that's a branch. It's a complete thing. I can search for something and share with you. That's what we did in Router GPT. We fine-tuned the model on existing open source one, and North GPT is also one of the same. It's called fine-tuning. It's called RAG, but RAG is mostly like training on your own organization data or something. Fine-tuning is something you could focus on. Yeah.
What model is Norsk GPT based on?
Llama 2 for now, but then we're also training it on Mistral. That's another one. All right, then I think we can finish it off. Thank you so much. I really had fun teaching all of you. I got very interesting comments and questions in the class. It was a much bigger class than I'm used to, 250 students. And this kind of problem when I check the papers and mark the final grades. If you have any questions regarding the final project or the final exam, please send an email. I will come to you, and then we'll take it then. You have one more assignment regarding the prompting part. That's a mandatory one, but this will be an easy one. It's not going to be. It's just prompting. It's an easy one. That's an individual one. Everyone has to attempt that. All right, thank you so much. We can finish off. Sorry.
I have a question about the exam.
Yeah.
Do we have some exams from before we can practice on, because I don't find any?
No, so I uploaded an sample exam that is supposed to just give you an idea on the structure of the exam. But the historical exams we're not uploading those.
Okay. Okay.
Please go to Canvas under the modules. There will be one module called sample exam.
So some of those have. Okay.
Take a look now, and I'm sure we have time. So we can finish the class now if you want.
It's called info exam, right?
Yes.
Okay.